Chapter 25, The Blue Zone. I first heard about blue zones when I watched the documentary The Human Longevity Project. A blue zone sounds nice, don't you think? For me, the color blue represents both the sky and the sea and is associated with open spaces, freedom, and imagination. A zone is an area or stretch of land having a particular characteristic. I liked it even when I didn't know what exactly occurred in the blue zones, but I would soon find out. What is a blue zone? The term first appeared in the November 2005 National Geographic magazine cover story, The Secrets of a Long Life by Dan Buettner. He identified 5 areas where this phenomenon occurs: Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Nicoya, Costa Rica; Icaria, Greece; and among the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. Buettner offers an explanation based on observations and data as to why these populations live healthier and longer lives. I definitely wanted to live a healthier and longer life, but how? Using Icaria as an example, a 2009 study on the island revealed it to be the location with the highest percentage of 90-year-olds on the planet. Nearly 1 out of 3 people make it to their 90s. Furthermore, Icarians have about 20% lower rates of cancer, 50% lower rates of heart disease, and almost no dementia. But why? People inhabiting blue zones share common lifestyle characteristics that contribute to their longevity. A Venn diagram of the study highlights the following 6 shared characteristics among people that live in a blue zone. First, put family ahead of other concerns. Second, smoke less. Third, semi-vegetarian. The majority of food consumed is derived from plants. Fourth, constant moderate physical activity. Fifth, social engagement. People of all ages are socially active and integrated into their communities, not on social media. Sixth, legumes commonly consumed. It made sense. We are all sitting too much and we don't eat large amounts of vegetables. With the steady rise of digital technology, sitting has become the most common posture in the workplace. Most desk workers spend an average of 10 hours a day sitting. Sitting can be extremely detrimental to your health, even more so than smoking, some claim. What they were eating in the blue zone sounded like Michael Pollan's philosophy of food. He states it perfectly in his Netflix special. Eat real food that is unprocessed, unrefined foods in their natural state, mostly plants, because of the positive impact it has on human health and the health of the environment. And not too much. RFMP, real food, mostly plants. I believed in this and started implementing it in my life. I was eating reasonably healthy before, but to go to the next level, I needed to not only shape up my eating habits, but also alter the time that I ate as well. This is not going to be a cookbook, but I'll share information about how I began to eat and continue to do so today. First, I'll tell you about intermittent fasting, a program that is applied for 4 days a week over 10 to 15 weeks a year. That is intermittent fasting, or mimicking fasting, as Dr. Walter Longo calls it in his book, The Longevity Diet. Advocates of fasting claim that it can make you live longer, heal faster, and expand your energy levels. Is that just hype, or is there tested science to back up those claims? While most of the research to date has been done on animals, not humans, a major amount of existing research supports the health benefits of fasting. It has been shown to increase BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor levels, and stimulate neurogenesis. Fasting has been shown to improve biomarkers, short for biological markers, of disease, reduce oxidative stress, and preserve learning and memory functioning, according to Mark Mattson, senior investigator for the National Institute on Aging. There are several theories about why fasting provides physiological benefits, says Mattson. The one that we studied a lot and designed experiments to test is the hypothesis that during the fasting period, cells are under mild stress, he says, and respond to the stress adaptively by enhancing their ability to cope with stress, and maybe to resist disease. Wow, I thought. Hormesis once again. There is considerable similarity between how cells respond to the stress of exercise and how cells respond to intermittent fasting, says Mattson. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That makes sense. The mild stressor makes the cell grow stronger, just like a muscle. If we refrain from eating for a while, that in fact stresses our cells, and cells get more resilient as a result. If you think about it, the way we have developed and adapted in this world is quite remarkable. But nowadays, the fridge is always full of food and drinks, and most of us sit behind a computer or in front of a television all day. With a grin, I imagined a 2-week retreat where you could go to be hammered with mild stressors. I bet you would come out quite hardened, and if you had enough time to recover after those 2 weeks, your body and mind would be stronger and more resilient. If there was such a place, I'd go twice a year. You can fast in many ways, but I usually stick to a pattern of fasting for 13 to 16 hours each day, and I only eat during the remaining 8 hours. I skip breakfast. The word breakfast means breaking the fast, and have lunch at noon. At the beginning of this new way of eating, I sometimes had a so-called bulletproof coffee with grass-fed butter in it. See Dave Asprey in his book Bulletproof to keep me from feeling hungry in the morning. I love coffee, but I refrain from drinking the real stuff and drink decaffeinated coffee for 6 weeks to get past the addiction phase. Why did I choose to do that? Is coffee bad for you or good for you? Some health gurus tell us that coffee is terrible and that we should stay away from it at all costs. Other specialists say it's a superfood loaded with all sorts of beneficial antioxidants and phytochemicals. So, which is it? First, you need to know what adenosine is. Adenosine is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that tends to make you feel tired and sleepy. More adenosine means less energy. At night, it builds up and is one of the primary signals telling your brain it's time to go to sleep. Caffeine works by blocking the action of adenosine. Coffee is addictive, and if you consume coffee every day, you can create negative neurotransmitter adaptations. Ari Whitten describes this very elegantly in his Energy Blueprint program. The brain might begin to believe that there is an adenosine shortage and, as a result, produce more adenosine. By blocking adenosine every day, you can create an imbalance in your brain's neurotransmitters. The vicious cycle. You need even more coffee to get through the day. What to do then? I drank coffee without caffeine for 6 weeks. Then I started to use it randomly, consuming caffeinated coffee on 1 or 2 days each week, followed by 5 days of caffeine-free coffee. I have to tell you about the first time I drank coffee with caffeine after 6 weeks of drinking decaf. I was in the UK at the time and I felt such an amazing kick from the caffeine. It was like, wow. The difference in sensation was quite remarkable. Now I have that regularly when I drink caffeinated coffee after a week of decaf. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. Let's move on to what I ate and still do. First, I shop for organic fruits, vegetables, fish, and meat. I ate a surprising amount of vegetables, and I got a juicer for another way to add even more. By the way, I had never heard of or seen some of the vegetables that I was eating or drinking. I basically grabbed every vegetable in the supermarket. I knew that dietary phytochemicals are hormetic stressors, not just antioxidants. Scientists have discovered that plants don't actually want to be eaten, so they develop chemicals to keep animals from eating them. These chemicals in fruits and other plants are natural pesticide. We're the pests. It activates a cellular response when we eat them. That response helps protect us from phytochemicals and a range of other types of stressors. I now knew that I needed to eat loads of vegetables to jumpstart and maintain the cellular response in my body. I also needed to take charge of my gut, known in recent works as the second brain. After all those antibiotics I had taken to get rid of my Lyme disease, which I think was most likely a case of burnout, recent studies show that your brain affects your gut, and your gut may even affect your brain health. The communication system between your gut and brain is called the gut-brain axis. Neurons are cells found in your brain and central nervous system that tell your body how to behave. There are approximately 100 billion neurons in the human brain. Interestingly, your gut also contains 500 million neurons. They are connected to your brain through nerves in your nervous system. The vagus nerve is one of the biggest nerves connecting your gut and brain. It sends signals in both directions. Which foods help the gut-brain axis? A few groups of foods are specifically beneficial for the gut-brain axis. Here are some of the most important ones. Omega-3 fats. These fats are found in oily fish and also in high quantities in the human brain. Fermented foods. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi all contain healthy microbes such as lactic acid bacteria. High fiber foods. Nuts, seeds, fruits, and vegetables all contain prebiotic fibers that are good for your gut bacteria. Polyphenol-rich foods. Cocoa, green tea, olive oil, and coffee all contain polyphenols, which are plant chemicals that have a beneficial effect on your gut bacteria. Tryptophan-rich foods. Tryptophan is an amino acid that is converted into the neurotransmitter serotonin. Foods that are high in tryptophan include turkey and eggs. I want to add one of my favorites to this list: green bananas. Green bananas are also rich in tryptophan and contain a high amount of resistant starch and pectin, which have been linked to several health benefits. As bananas ripen, most of the starches are turned into sugar. The last thing I want to say about the gut: challenge your microbiome. What do I mean by that? Don't eat the same things every week. Also, incorporate more exotic dishes, for example, from India or Lebanon. Why? Indian dishes, for example, are typically made up of meat and/or vegetables in a spice sauce. The vegetables contain lots of minerals and nutrients, and turmeric and other spices, curry powder, have anti-inflammatory and other beneficial health effects. Lebanese cuisine is my favorite, with its fresh herbs, spices, and vegetables. It speaks for itself. I'm not an expert on what to eat, and I hate fashionable diets of all kinds. I'll continue to stick with the ideology diet of RFMP, real food, mostly plants, and the way that the people eat in the blue zones. To be honest, I've changed it a bit to RFLP, real food, loads of plants, and I hope you don't mind. Chapter 26. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Holy moly, the woman shouted. She was entering the shower I had just left, and it was turned to the coldest setting. She was mad about that. I always forgot to put it back to an average temperature after I went into the shower. Sorry, I said, but I wasn't really sorry for her. I was taking a cold shower to stimulate hormesis, and she got a small piece of it. Perhaps that wasn't such a bad thing for her. I mentioned before the quote from Nietzsche that titles a chapter of this book. For me, it sums up hormesis. To refresh your memory, hormesis is a concept of how temporary stressors work to grow your mitochondria. Hormesis is the act of increasing the number of big, healthy, and powerfully resilient to stressors mitochondria in your body. I believe that hormesis is the key to becoming stress-proof, not only on a physical level, but on a mental one. Most people feel an increase in their levels of mental stress when they worry about something or feel insecure. I can only relate to this myself, but I had a feeling that I could better handle mental stress while I was going through a period of systematic mild stressors, hormesis. I guess hormesis forced me to get out of my head. Research indicates that the number of mitochondria in your body will shrink by half after 40 to 80 years of age if you don't engage in multiple forms of hormesis. Why aren't doctors and health gurus talking about this? You can eat the healthiest diet, reduce stress, sleep well, and so on. But if you do not make the habit of hormesis in your daily life, the number and resilience of your mitochondria will shrink. Hence, you'll get tired more often. Challenges or stressors are what works to create a robust and healthy body and brain. Harshness in specific doses is useful if you want to live a healthier and longer life. We live in a pampered and spoiled era that we might describe as anti-hormesis. Food is available whenever we want it, especially junk food, without life-enhancing phytochemicals. We can run our offices and perhaps the world while sitting on our butts. We hardly ever go out of our comfort zone. Our earliest ancestors, on the contrary, lived in a world where hunting and walking was part of their daily routine. Food and plants were not always available every day. That may have created a state of scarcity, fasting. They were also exposed to heat and cold, beneficial stressors that made our ancestors more robust and resilient. After reading about hormetic activity, I decided to implement those principles in my life. Remember though, if you choose to do this, you must first pay attention to circadian rhythm and sleep, and change your food habits if necessary. Start gently with the consent of your doctor. Too much stress can have the opposite of the desired effect. Hormesis through exercise. Sprint interval training wasn't for me since I couldn't run at the time, but I could use a Stairmaster to get high-intensity training, HIT. I got on a Stairmaster for 5 minutes during the day. 1 minute at full speed, 1 minute of rest, and then I repeated it. Sometimes I returned to the machine several times during the day. Why didn't I go for one longer session per day? Because in my carefully formulated theory, I reasoned that our ancestors didn't know ahead of time when they would need to run, relating that to my Stairmaster use. I figured it would be best to do that level of activity for several days, 2 to 3 times per day, and then stay off the machine for a couple days. That worked for me. I tried other variations, doing 4 minutes of intense Stairmaster training once a week, in bursts of 20 seconds of intense exercise, and then 10 seconds of rest. I almost threw up afterward. I suggest that you don't try this at home without a physical therapist. Much later, I went running for 30 seconds and then rested for 30 seconds. Yes, I can now run a little bit. It took me 2 years practice to do this. If you can't walk yet, try using a small trampoline. You can stand up, try to get one with a handle on it, or kneel on it, giving almost the same effect. Or, You can jump up and down a little bit while on your knees. Hormesis through intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting increases the neurogenesis of mitochondria. I periodically did not have breakfast before I worked out for the first time during the day. The reason for that was to encourage mitochondrial biogenesis. The word periodically is vital to note because your body adapts to anything. If you want the effect of mitochondrial biogenesis, you need to do it periodically, as I did. Periods of intermittent fasting also work because it increases autophagy, cell recycling. Intermittent fasting should be followed by HIT, high-intensity training exercise. And shifting back and forth between autophagy and building mode is key. If you combine that with the circadian rhythm habits explained in the chapter titled Sleep, you have a powerful way to increase autophagy. And remember, increased autophagy keeps you young. Hormesis through xenohormesis. What doesn't kill plants makes us stronger as well. I talk about this in previous chapters, but let me elaborate. Plants contain phytochemicals which are beneficial for human health. How do these plants get phytochemicals? Through xenohormesis. Environmentally stressed plants produce bioactive compounds, oxidants, that can transfer stress resistance and survival benefits to the animals and humans that consume them. So, plants are not just antioxidants. Hormesis through hot or cold. 2 or 3 times a week, all year round, I went to a sauna with an outdoor swimming pool. I went into the sauna for 15 to 20 minutes and, immediately afterward, went outside and got in the pool, even in winter. The pool contained warm water, but after I emerged from the warmth, I stayed out in the cold air for 3 minutes or more. I also took cold showers 3 times a week after learning that exposure to cold temperatures stimulates mitochondrial growth. Immediately after my cold shower in the morning, I was so energized I felt like I could rule the world. I also tried walking barefoot through the dunes when it was cold. My feet felt like blocks of ice while I was doing it, but afterward they felt warm and pleasantly worn out. Walking on a beach covered with cold stones hurt quite a lot, especially in my left foot that lacked muscle tone. However, it resulted in a stimulating and long-lasting sensation, as if I could still feel the stones beneath my feet for hours afterwards when I was sitting in the car. Hormesis through hypoxia. In South Korea, there are women, some in their 80s, who dive to catch seaweed and shellfish for food. They hold their breath for about 3 minutes during these dives and are among the longest living people on Earth. Researchers in Russia and Ukraine have also been looking at the use of breathing methods to enhance health and performance. At present, IHT, intermittent hypoxic training, is primarily known in the athletic world, where it has been successfully adopted by athletes to improve their fitness and athletic performance. By using specific breathing techniques, your body can induce low oxygen levels in the blood, cells, and mitochondria. That way, the mitochondria is trained to increasingly apply oxygen more efficiently and accurately. I use some of these techniques while walking. As I walked into the forest near our home, I practiced holding my breath to see how many steps I could take before inhaling again. The forest was also on a hill, so my body was further challenged by going up that incline and giving my hamstrings a good workout. Also, when I practice yoga, I try to incorporate breathing techniques like pranayama to enhance the experience. Most of us have a hormetic-free lifestyle, and that makes us fragile. When people get sick, other than inherited illnesses, they usually think that a visit to the doctor will solve the issue as long as they are given a prescription for some type of medicine. I do honestly believe that the medical profession is wonderful, But there's a difference between the phrase, "I am studying medicine," and the phrase that I would like to hear more often, "I am studying health." My reluctance to feel comfortable about certain parts of the medical profession does not include people who work in the emergency unit of a hospital, research specialists, and those who have a sympathetic heart in their work. Perhaps doctors should instead be teaching their patients about the circadian rhythm, hormesis, and the gut-brain connection and its relationship to illness, and that antibiotics destroy the good bacteria that are important to your brain and immune system. Of course, I know that antibiotics are still essential for life-threatening infections. I have no question about or issues with that. But our bodies also have many natural defenses that we shouldn't meddle with unnaturally. I think the pharmaceutical industry has far too much influence in the hospital. I'm also aware that some people will think or say aloud, "Never mind, she's just a woman from Sweden who thinks she's going to change up medical practice. She doesn't even have a medical degree." I have no illusions that I will be able to change that type of opinion about me. But I also wish some doctors were less rigid or stuck in their ways. It would help if they read more about the latest research outside of their limited fields of specialization instead of playing God. None of the doctors I met following my stroke told me about neuroplasticity. I had to read about it for myself. Instead, every single one of them told me the same thing, that hardly any recovery would take place after the first 6 months from the time of the stroke. But enough about that. Who do I have confidence in? I believe in the scientists who think that the lack of hormesis is making us fragile and prone to disease. As parents, we do the same when we're too quick to rush to the medicine cabinet for a child with a fever. A fever, not surprisingly, indicates that your child is fighting off some sort of infection, such as a simple cold, the flu, or an ear infection. It is not an illness in itself. In fact, a fever may do some good. A study published in the February 2004 Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology found that children who ran a fever during their first year of life were less likely to develop allergies later in childhood than children who did not have a fever. And what about the disinfectant sprays and gels we tell our children to use? I was guilty of that too. Before I read that without exposure to dirt and germs early in life, the immune system doesn't learn how to control its reaction to everyday invaders such as dust and pollen. This obsession with disinfecting everything can lead the immune system to misfire later in life, initiating allergies and other illnesses. Our children are too clean for their own good. Years ago, when we lived in Amsterdam, I remember 1-year-old Martin sucking on one of the plastic safety handles inside of a streetcar. I was immediately shocked and cleaned his mouth thoroughly when we got home. Now I realize that there may be an excellent reason why children seem so eager to stuff everything and anything in their mouths. It may be due to a natural urge and because it is good for the immune system. It goes against the zeitgeist, a German word for our belief system, to think the way I do now, and that makes some people uncomfortable. I believe our zeitgeist has to change. Surely it's better to not be inside all day and all night in a perfectly climate-controlled room, but outside as often as possible in the heat and/or cold. I would like to finish with a question from the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. If someone put you in a box, what is written on your box? Fragile or anti-fragile?